Hey guys, so I am going to show you guys in real time. This is not like my normal way of doing things, but I was asked to show how I create skin texture like this. And so I thought this would be a good time to try and show you that. So the first thing that I do is I take this is a 4B pencil, and I'm just going to come in and, the first thing I would tell people is to look at your skin, look at your hands, look at your body, your face, and everywhere that you look, you're going to see that skin has direction. And usually it's just about like how it bends. So like if you look at your hand, these lines are going to go this way. And pay attention to that stuff because that is going to be how you draw it. And that's what's going to end up creating what looks like a three-dimensional object on paper. So the first thing that I do is I usually come in, and in here, this section, you've got muscles underneath here that go around your eyes. That's the other thing I would suggest, is that if you're doing portraiture, study anatomy. I have been studying anatomy since I was in high school, and it is probably one of the more valuable things that I've ever been able to do for myself, because it really just teaches you what's underneath here, what's making this pop out here, why does this curve right here, why does that, you have the orbits of the eyes, and then you have around this, you have these big round muscles that control all of the muscles around your eyeballs and your eyebrows. And once you understand that, then you understand, oh, well, these muscles help to pull the eyes up and down, right? And so that's going to be part of the direction that we then do our lines. So I'm just going to do a small section here because obviously I'm going to be doing this for like 150 hours doing this picture. So not going to do this for that long, but just to give you guys an idea. So we're going to make the darker spaces. Those are the pores, they're the little wrinkles and lines in the skin. And then I'm going to come in, I was using like a 4B, so a pretty soft pencil just then. And now I'm going to come back in with like a 3H. And I'm just going to go over top here. And I'm just going to lightly go over it. This is going to create sort of the base of the skin. And I will say that I am very much a layer drawing person. I do tons of layers. I think it's what helps to create a really three-dimensional, well, it's really two-dimensional, but what looks like a three-dimensional piece on paper. Okay, so you have that. And then very lightly, because if you push too hard with these, I think that you lose all the texture that you just tried to create. I'm going to come in with a blending tool, and I'm just going to really lightly, I'm barely pressing here. It's really just touching the paper. And sort of in little circles, I'm going to come back in, and you'll notice that I'm always going with the way that the skin would be going. Right, so I always imagine when I'm drawing something that I'm actually standing here with this person and I'm going like this over their face. So if you think that way, then all of a sudden your drawing will sort of follow those same lines, and before you know it, you will have something that feels very three-dimensional. So that's just a little trick that I use. I find it's really helpful. It's almost like sculpting, but with pencil. But it works really well. So anyway, so again, this is just a 3H, so pretty light, hard pencil. Okay, so there we have the beginnings of that. And then in this photo that I'm using, my reference photo, this area in here is pretty shadowed right above her eyebrow. So I'm just going to come back with the 4B. I'm going to come back in and darken this up. And this is just I'm doing this by just making really tiny little circles. Again, this doesn't take, it's not dark enough to, I'm not pushing very hard, so it's not dark enough that it's going to get rid of the lines that are underneath it. You still want to see those because that's how you create that texture, but it is dark enough that it's going to leave some graphite on the paper so it gets darker and puts it into shadow. And then from here, again, I'm just trying to build this. Just like if you were working with clay, you're going to start with a piece and then you're going to add on to that and take away and add on and take away, and it eventually will create it's the same thing. So I'm just going to add on some more layers here. And again, always moving my pencil in the same direction as if I was running my fingers across this woman's forehead. You know, it sounds awkward, but it works for drawing. And also to remember that skin isn't really uniform. There's always we all have little bumps and places that stick up or are just, maybe more wrinkly. And then I also bring in this is just a sanding pad, and then I also have an electric eraser here. For those of you who aren't familiar, if you're a drawer, get one, best tool ever. And I use this to just make this come to a nice point. Electric erasers are really great because you don't have to go back and forth. You just hold it in one spot and it will erase for you. And so it's really good for making highlights. In this case, let's see what we got here. There's some spaces along here that are all right, so if you do this and then they're too bright because you want them to be bright, but maybe you don't need them to be that bright, you can always just come back in with the blending tool and very lightly just sort of feather it a little bit. So you still have the feel of the highlight, but it's not super stark. And then I'm just gonna come back in, I'm gonna do another layer, because it's not quite there yet. We're getting there, but it's not quite right yet. So now once I have this base and it's a little bit darker, this side over here is in shadow. Now I can really pull some darker darks into that corner and into this highlight. So it's going to really create that sense of a hairline. You can see that starting to come out a little bit better. And then I'm going to come back in because this part right here is too dark for me. This is just an eraser. It's not a white pencil. I don't use anything like that in my drawings, or I haven't. I don't know if I ever will. But this is just an eraser, just in pencil form, which I love. These are my favorite erasers. Super easy to use. You just sharpen them just like a pencil. I know a lot of people use the Tombow ones. I have one. The thing I don't like about the Tombow ones personally is that, first of all, you have to keep sharpening the tip on them. And then second of all, they spin. So the eraser actually spins if you spin this bottom part. So when you put pressure on it, sometimes it spins around, and I don't always love that. They're nice. They're their own good thing, but I'm always bumping this with my hand when I'm drawing. And so I just prefer these. I've used these for years. These are the Kohl Noir Hardtmuth. They're not always the easiest thing to find in the United States. But anyway, that's what I use. All right, that's getting a little bit better. And this leads into a pretty good highlight that comes up against her hairline here. And again, I'm just making little spots, but they're all in line again with her skin. So anyway, and then after I do that, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to make some darker spots up against these shadows, or up against these highlights, so that it makes it really pop. And that's how I do skin texture. That'll be the whole face. Once I get into like pores and stuff on her nose, and a little bit further down on her face, I can do another one or do it live, and anyone that wants to pop on can watch. But that's the general gist of it. All right, let me know if there's more questions, or yeah, I'd love feedback, because I've never done a tutorial like this for TikTok. So anyway, if you like it, let me know and maybe I'll do more. All right, bye.